Hey there, it's Beck here from the Heart Garden with your 7 minutes of wisdom for the week. It started at 5 and I decided it wasn't quite long enough. I tend to get pleasantly carried away with what I want to say. And the word for this week is courage. So I'm sure we can find 7 minutes of goodness and self-reflection to explore how we can use the concept of courage to show up more in our lives this week and be more willing to experience all of life and actually let life in. So courage, I feel, has become quite misdefined over the last few thousand years of the patriarchy. No offense to men, of course. It's a social construct, though, which has taught us that courage is to run out into a battlefield sword waving. All of history has shown us courage, as it's currently defined, seems to mean being willing to face death and cut through and forge a path through the wilderness, I suppose, or go where no man has gone before. And I feel that it absolutely does take elements of courage or maybe bravery to do those things. But there's a more subtle, more inward dimension of courage that gets left out of that definition. Not many people would see someone sitting on a cushion and still and silent and consider that to be an act of courage. But in fact, in the world that we're living in now, it takes an enormous amount of courage to become still and silent and purely be with what we're experiencing. We're living in an age of distraction, and so many of us are experiencing so many different feelings on a daily basis. Everything has been speeding up, and so we've found ourselves inclined to want to avoid that. You know, it's this age of distraction and the age of avoidance. We have social media, we have this incredible buffet of options to distract ourselves from simply what we're feeling, completely at our fingertips all the time. So not only does it take an enormous amount of courage, but it takes an enormous amount of willpower to choose not to buy into those different means of distraction at a given time and just be with exactly what we're experiencing. It sounds simple and it sounds straightforward, but I know it's still something that I find really challenging to choose to stop and to be still. So that was one element of courage that I really wanted to acknowledge. We're so rewarded by the world. Everyone gets a pat on the back by the world for doing things and achieving things, and it absolutely takes courage to achieve and to push through our fears and push our limits, and all of those things take courage, sure. But I want to acknowledge the silent courage. I want to acknowledge the courage that it takes to quit a uni degree in the face of judgment from family, judgment from society, because you know that that's no longer your truth and that's no longer the path that you need to be on. My partner actually did this recently and I've been so inspired by it. He now is using that time that he would have spent studying something that he's no longer passionate about, that's no longer aligned with our lifestyle, doing far more productive things and spending time with his son. So sometimes it takes courage to quit as much as it takes courage to keep doing what you're doing, whether that's leaving a job or departing from something because it no longer feels like it's right. Sometimes that isn't running away, whereas sometimes compulsive work is running away. So the insight and the reflection for this week that I really want to offer to you is just to reconsider what actually takes courage and what courage means to you, and perhaps detach that a little bit from what society tries to impose upon us. It takes true courage to be seen by another person. It takes true courage to be open and to be visible and to be vulnerable. And yet we're told that it takes courage to, have bravado and put on this face, and that, to be courageous is to be a warrior or a sports legend. And yet, there's so much more to it than that. That willingness to be open, that willingness to be seen. So I invite you this week to set an intention there, to be willing to be more open, to be willing to be more seen, and whether that's acknowledging your own truth in any given situation, even if that goes against the social norms, or whether it's allowing another to see you as an imperfect being without your masks and your bravado. Yeah, that feels like a good challenge to put forward for this week, for us to step into our courage and to show up and be ourselves. It takes courage to be ourselves in any given situation, especially when we fear disapproval. We're rewarded for some things by society at large, and we're, not so rewarded for others, or not so acknowledged for others perhaps. So yeah, I really encourage that for you this week, and I'm going to keep practicing doing the same. I'll be back next week with some more juicy wisdom. Thank you so much for joining me. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And please get back to me with your definitions of courage. What does courage mean to you? And what courage could we also celebrate in the world that isn't currently recognised? Thanks for coming to play, beautiful people. I'll see you next week. Bye.